Have I considered him? I like him for breakfast. I like to kill that guy and everything he's got. I like to blot out the memory of him from off the face of the earth, says the devil. You know, he's full of graciousness in a devilish way, isn't he? I've considered him. Now, do understand that evil and hatred comes from the devil. And then he says to him, but put forth thine hand now and touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to your face. See, God? Now he says, the only reason that Job serves you is because you won't let me at him. Give me half an hour in a boxing ring with that fellow and I want to tell you, he'd curse you to your face. Give me half an hour of my machinations on him and I'd fix him till he cursed you. Now you let the things of blessing be touched, and this guy, he'll hate you. He's just serving you because you're you, and you've blessed him, and you've prospered him, and you've caused him to live well, and you've caused his family to go well, and you've caused everything to go right, and of course he loves you. He loves you for what he can get out of you. But if you just touched anything, he wouldn't love you, he'd hate you. If you let me get at him, he'd hate you. Because I'd convince him that you were a hard taskmaster, a mean, rotten, cruel, harsh, wounding, afflicting individual. I'd convince him that you were a monster. But at the moment I can't do that. I can't do that because you've got this hedge all round him. Now he says, you watch it. Let me at him, or you put forth your hand and you see he'll curse you to your face. Now the trouble is that the devil's right about one thing. A lot of people, when calamity comes, answer against God. They blame God. They say it was God's fault. Have you ever heard it come out of Christians' lips? Why did God let that happen? But what they don't understand is we are the battleground where good and evil are fighting. And God has come and the enemy's come. Now the enemy fought, would you believe it? He couldn't get Moses while he was alive, but he tried to steal his body when he was dead. God buried Moses. No one else did. God buried him. And I want to tell you, the devil wanted Moses' body. If I can't have him when he's alive, at least I'll fight over the corpse. That's the devil. You know, he likes dead things. And he thought, you know, I'll do my worst on his dead body. He would have made a tomb for Moses, and he'd have got everyone going and doing what the Jews do today at David's tomb in Jerusalem. They go and they commit idolatry and they commit blasphemies over people's tombs and graves. You see them all standing, and it's anti-God. And God made sure that wasn't going to happen to Moses. There was no way Moses, the one who'd spoken with God face to face and been a friend of God, was going to end up as the major source of idolatry in Israel. He said, I'm not having it. And so he caused Moses' body to vanish and God buried him. That's a wonderful thing, isn't it? And yet the devil contended with the archangel Michael over the body. There was one thing he wanted, it was a body of Moses. He could have made such a superstitious rite of that thing if he could have got hold of that body. God stopped it. And so we see how the machinations of the devil are. And over you, when you really get a true experience of God, the devil's about to do everything he can to convince you that if you walk right, God will bless you, but the moment things go wrong, it's God's chastening hand. And yet things will happen in your life that have nothing to do with the chastenings of God or the dealings of God. They're just pure and simple happenings. And yet you'll begin to be like the necromancers who swill round the tea leaves in the cup and turn it upside down and then look to try and tell what's going on. Or like the person who kills the chicken and pours out the entrails and has a look and see what they can see. Usually entrails. But terrible. But that's the way we are in our Christian life. We kind of look at the entrails of happenings and try and work out, what is it, God? We need to be delivered from it. Okay, in chapter 2, verse 3. This is what God says about Job. Now, open your hearts and listen. You might not like what you hear, but then who said you were to like it? And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job? There is none like him in the earth. There's none like Job in the earth. Now that was God's opinion of Job. But the devil knew that what he had to do was convince Job that that wasn't true. So you'll find he sends along Eliphaz in chapter 4. Verse 18, God says, Have you considered my servant Job? There's none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil, and still he holdeth fast his integrity, although thou movest me against him to destroy him without cause. And yet in chapter 4, verse 18, Eliphaz turns round and says, Behold, God put no trust in his servants, and his angels he charged with folly. God doesn't trust anyone. God doesn't even trust his angels. Now God turned around and said, Job's got integrity. There's no one like him in the earth. Eliphaz, the devil's servant, and the natural thinker says, God trusts no one. He doesn't even trust his angels. You'll find it also in chapter 22. In other words, what the devil's doing is he's saying, look, God's not like he is. He's something else. In chapter 22,